I can't stress this enough. Do not try this at home.
Can I have your phone? I don't have mine, so if I need to call 911.
This is a Hurco VM-1 3-axis CNC milling machine. It's gonna freak out. We're out of oil. I made this highly accurate scale model. The only real problem is the way covers. They look rough on the outside and they're not any better on the inside. The way wiper casings are gonna have to be replaced. They've worn so far that they've gone through this little lip that actually holds the seal in place. What I got does not match the dimensions I was given. There's $1,000 sitting right there. Like the tool change arm? Okay. But the servos and drives and stuff are still there? Well, that's interesting. The plan was to spot weld in these new casings and then install these new wiper seals. But that plan may be changing. I got a tip from a viewer about another Hurco. He spotted it by the scrap bin at a machine shop about 2 hours to the south. I called the machine shop. It's another VM-1. The computer died and it was going to cost more to fix it than they thought it was worth. So they shoved it out the door and bought a brand new machine. When the dealer was there installing the new machine, they took the control pendant and the tool changer arm, but he thinks everything else is there and he's willing to sell me anything I want, including the whole machine, for scrap price. So I'm going to hook up the trailer and we're gonna go check it out. There it is. I was told that this tool changer arm was missing, but it turns out lots of things are missing. They took all the servos, they took the spindle, and the whole control cabinet is empty. All the drives, everything is gone. Even the way lube tank is gone. The good news is the way covers are there and they appear to be in really good shape. So I'm gonna get those. And then I've got another little surprise that I wasn't counting on when I came down here. I think you're gonna like it. This does not get less sketchy the second time. Okay, now I feel better. I think this one's a little heavier. I'm running out of room for extra counterweight. I didn't get everything that I wanted, but I was able to get a lot of the parts that I needed. And in the process, I got something else, a whole other machine. This is a Hurco VM-10. So the two machines are fairly similar. This machine is 6 years newer. It has slightly more travel front to back and up and down. This machine holds 16 tools. This machine holds 24 tools, but the big differences are with the tool changer. So this machine has a crazy Rube Goldberg system of hydraulics, pneumatics, and electronics to operate the swing arm tool changer. On this machine, it's all electronic. I think that comes from the VX series machines. Anyway, the other big difference is that this machine, even though it was built in 2005, still uses DOS as the operating system. This machine is Windows based. Functionally, there's really no difference. The actual motion control and programming is the same between the two machines. I think this machine is just slightly faster, but probably not even noticeably. The big difference is, since this machine is Windows based, it has USB. It's also much easier to use Ethernet and network to load programs. Being DOS based, that still uses floppy disks, and you're pretty much limited to RS-232. You can do some basic networking, but it's not like what we're used to today. I don't know, he made me an offer that I just couldn't refuse. I was able to buy this whole machine for less than I paid for the parts to fix this machine. And you're probably wondering, what's the catch? And I don't know, but I'm sure there is one. It does run. We fired it up. Everything moves. The tool changer works. I think the control is fine, but it's been sitting for 7 years, and you can tell It is very, very dirty and ugly. A lot of the paint is scraped off. Functionally, I don't know. We're gonna have to tear into it. But for now, I wanna focus on this machine and get it finished up and hopefully get it to where we can use it. And then eventually, one of these machines is gonna have to go because I don't have room or really a need for both of them. And probably it's gonna be this machine. It's a lot prettier, and I imagine I'll have a lot easier time selling it. I was pressure washing the way covers, and I ran into a little problem. That is not good. I think we are out of water. Like, out of water. So that's the pump, and that hose right there is a sand point. And I don't think there's any water at the bottom of it. What are we gonna do about that? So you might be wondering, what are the way covers and why do we care about them so much? You know, is it really worth doing all this work? Think about the way covers like a suit of armor, but instead of protecting a squishy human, they protect the precise and the expensive parts of this machine. You know, this thing's basically a robot. It's designed to run balls out 24/7. And when the spindle is chewing away at 8,000 RPM and flood coolant is spraying everywhere, it's like a Category 4 hurricane in here. And without the way covers, these linear guide rails and ball screws, the support bearings, the servo motors, the belts, even these switches, you know, they just wouldn't last very long. I can tell you from brutal experience, the 3 best ways to really F up a machine tool are to crash it, to damage the lubrication system, or to damage the way covers. These donor covers are a lot better. All I did was clean them, straighten them, and sand the outside surface. So the original covers were really rusty and badly pitted, and then the casings were worn through. They have a few hickeys and some wear marks, but overall the surface is much better. These plastic bumpers are in good shape. The rollers are, for the most part, in good shape. And the casings are in good shape. So all we have to do is replace the original wiper seals. Interestingly, these covers are not the same as the original covers. They are quite a bit wider. And the VM-10 also has these wider covers. So it must have been a later revision. The good news is I think they'll bolt right up. So all the mounting locations are the same. And I also got the wider fairing that will cover these. So shouldn't be a problem there. What is a problem is the wiper seals. I couldn't find them aftermarket. I had to buy them from Hurco. The price was pretty reasonable, but I need 20 meters to do both machines, and they didn't have that much. He told me they could send me 10 right away, and I could have the rest in 45 days. This showed up. Now I know that one man's 4 1/4 is another man's 8 1/2, but there's no way that that's 10 meters. Certainly not enough to do one whole machine. So I waited. And I waited, and I waited, and I waited, and I waited. And almost 4 months later, this showed up. So now we can finally start putting things back together. All right, we got to fix a few things before we can install the wiper seals. On the original covers, these rollers were in sad shape. I ground through the welds and took them all apart. You can see that shaft is worn about halfway through, and there's a huge flat spot on that roller. I was going to rebuild them, but I don't need to. The donor rollers are, for the most part, in pretty good shape. This one right here does have some wear and a little bit of a flat spot. So I was able to pick through the parts from the old covers and put together a couple of donors. I think these will be just fine. I was going to have to make all new shafts, and I had bought some standoffs to use for the rollers. This will be a whole lot easier. That'll work. The next problem is a little more tricky. Outside of each roller, there should be a little plastic bumper. It's just kind of a guide that keeps the cover centered side to side. And it just slips over this sheet metal tab, kind of like a taco shell. But out of 3 complete sets of way covers, I didn't find a single one that was still intact. And then on the vertical cover for the Z-axis, there's a more complicated L-shaped bumper. Again, it just slips over top of the sheet metal, no fasteners, and that centers it side to side and front and back. But these are also in really sad shape. I can't buy them, and they're complicated parts to make. The easy way to do it would be 3D printing, but I don't know about the long-term effects of oil exposure on 3D printing. And even these injection molded parts weren't very oil resistant. They got all brittle and just basically fell apart. So what I chose to do is kind of model them up and then machine them on the CNC router out of high density polyethylene. It should be extremely oil resistant. I mean, it's literally what they make oil containers out of. So they came out pretty good. And then my plan was to attach them with pop rivets. But that's where I ran into a problem. So I used the same thickness material, but the pop rivet has a tail that sticks out, and that's not going to work. The maximum thickness I can have without interference is about 7 millimeters, and this total is a little over 8 millimeters. These L-shaped bumpers came out really nice, but do you see what I did wrong? Yeah, that's not gonna work. So I modeled up some new bumpers, cut them out of HDPE on the CNC router, and this time I countersunk the holes so I can attach them with an M4 flathead screw, and that gives me a nice low profile. These new L-shaped bumpers should work pretty nicely. To install these new bumpers, I have to spot the hole and then drill through with a 3.3 millimeter drill and then tap for an M4 screw. Like so. The only thing left is to install the new wiper seals. Unfortunately, there was nothing left of the original seals, so I don't know how they did the corners. So I don't know, originally they might have had a miter cut here at the corner. I don't know. Seems to work okay without it. When I took them apart, they were kind of crimped down every so often, so I'm just trying to reproduce that. I think that'll work. This is kind of an unusual design. So normally you just have the wiper seal across the top, and then you'd have a plastic or a bronze guide along the side just to keep the covers from rubbing against each other. You don't really need the seal on the side because you got gravity pulling the chips down. Nothing wrong with it. It's just different. Just a little bit of oil to help those seals slide. Okay. I think we're finally done, and they look pretty good. I'm happy with my guides. I think those will work great. You can see on the Z-axis cover just how close together they are when they're collapsed. I shudder to think about how much time I've got in these way covers. I know I had over 40 hours to get the old covers to this point, and then we essentially had to abandon them. On top of that, I had 3 hours of travel to get the new wiper seals. Over 3 hours, probably 4 hours of travel to get the replacement way covers, and then who even knows. I think the machine's about as clean as I can get it. I did have to use all the brake clean. We need to power it up so we can move things around, make it a lot easier to install the way covers. But that is currently kind of difficult. This is the power on button. It's a sealed momentary contact switch with a lamp and a colored lens. This is made in Switzerland by EAO, and this one is broken. So I was able to buy the body and a new lamp. Got these from DigiKey. These are kind of a modular system. You can build up these buttons in pretty much any configuration you can think of. So let's see. I think the lens goes on here like so. And then the bezel, I believe they call that. That's it. Ready to install. I did get the wrong lamp the first time, so I had to buy the actual LED. Pretty sure the LED lamp was the most expensive part of this assembly. So this thing has to plug into a socket on a printed circuit board. So it has to be oriented just about right, but there's no orienting feature. So I think it's going to be a guess and check kind of a deal. Manual, power. Okay, I think it works. Air pressure too low. Why is our light not on? Huh. That's weird. There we go. These are looking pretty good, but I made a mistake on the Z-axis cover. It didn't want to pull up all the way, and I figured out that I pinched this oil line. So I just manually cycled the oiler a couple times. It doesn't appear to be leaking, and it does appear to be oiling, so I think we're okay. You can see a little bit of oil dripping off of that screw. Just have to be a little more careful. I've made some progress. It's nothing too exciting, but we're getting pretty close. Let me catch you up. All the covers and guards are installed. They fit. They look good. Let's never speak of them again. I installed some new line lock for the coolant. These are like adjustable nozzles. I replaced this broken door latch with one that I salvaged from the parts machine. I also fixed a major air leak on the back side of the tool changer by replacing a push lock elbow with one that I salvaged from the parts machine. I fixed the light on the power button. I just didn't have the bulb pushed in all the way. I installed a new air nozzle and all the associated plumbing. My years of running CNC machines have made me highly opinionated about air nozzles. This is the one I like. Made in Sweden, like all the best stuff. And I like to have a nice, light, straight hose. I hate wrestling with these coiled hoses. That one is for the wash down, so that sprays coolant so you can blast the chips out of the machine. I replaced this broken pressure gauge, and the cap was missing on the lube tank. That's the one off the parts machine. I replaced the cooling fans for the spindle and the spindle motor. These wires were getting pretty sketchy. And I replaced all the Cat 5 cables inside the control cabinet. 2 of them are shielded, 1 was not. All the connectors are in pretty sad shape. Focus. See, that one's missing the lock tab. And they're all cracked and broken. I didn't trust them. The last thing I want to do is tune up the doors. So the windows are in pretty sad shape, pretty hazy. You can't really see through them at all. We need to straighten up the frames. You can see they've been run into, and the whole door is actually kind of bowed. Oh, that's not good. That is much better. Much, much better. And we've got clearance to the vices. Not much clearance, but all we need is some. I got some new clamps to hold the vices. That's working out pretty well. I can't use the regular slots because it puts them too far back and they will hit the door, which I'm sure is what happened the last time. That's why they were all mangled. One more weird thing. This is the screen that the coolant drains through. It goes down there. And at some point, someone has drilled a bunch of holes in it. And then they also cut 4 slots into it. I'm not sure why. Maybe the coolant was backing up. Anyway, they must have figured out that wasn't going to work. And they tried to undo it by installing these plates underneath the slots. So now our screen area is reduced by about half. So I might make a new screen at some point. I wish I would have grabbed the one off the parts machine. I didn't know that was a problem. Anyway, I'm gonna put that back together and I'm gonna fill it up with coolant and we're gonna make something. I can tell you there's a lot of tribalism and very strong opinions about coolant and cutting oil. This is what I've always used, Trim E206 made by Master Chemical. It is an oil that you mix with water and it forms an emulsion. The water cools, the oil lubricates. Okay, so why is there so much tribalism? Well, there's just an unbelievable number of machining coolant options. Master Chemical alone has over 50 different formulas, and there's dozens of companies making this stuff. I mean, there's literally thousands of different options. And, how are you supposed to pick one? I suspect what most people do is what I did. They try a few, they find one that works, and then they absolutely refuse to change. Maybe there's something better out there. I don't know. Let me know in the comment box what your tribal preference is. This stuff works for me. So much for my dreams of actually making something with this machine. We have problems with the tool changer. Again. I'm not sure, but I think the problem is it shows the arm being in position when the arm is still moving. So let me go back. That way seems to be okay. I had a feeling that might happen. I thought we got off a little too easy the last time. I mean, surely there had to be more to it than just filling it up with oil. The problems, well, I think there's more than one problem. So the problem is when the tool change arm swings around, it seems like it's trying to unclamp the tool before the arm has the tool fully grasped. And when I do a manual tool change, when I push the button to release the tool, about half the time it doesn't work. So it wants me to put tool 1 in the spindle, but if I push the unclamp button, it's gonna freak out. Spindle clamp and unclamp inputs detected. So either the switches are stuck or there's some kind of electronic gremlin with that. So somebody's been here before. I think we got a bad connector. All right. Now it doesn't work at all. That pin right there, it's either spread way open or it's completely broken. Either way, it's not going to work. So I'm pretty sure that's a Molex connector, or it's Molex adjacent, you know, made by Amp or somebody like that. Pretty common in CNC machines, especially American CNC machines. If you've ever worked around a Haas, the word Molex probably gave you a chill. These things are basically junk. I mean, they're fine for like disposable appliances, dishwashers and stuff, but they really shouldn't be in CNC machines. They're actually only rated for 25 times being connected and disconnected. I've been down this road many times, and wouldn't you know, I just happen to have an appropriate replacement Molex connector with the pins. And in my ongoing quest to have every tool, I actually have the for real Molex crimping tool. The question is, can I do this without getting at least one pin in the wrong place? This is 24 gauge wire. Tiny little stuff. That looks right. Okay. Just gotta do that 12 more times. This is probably not the for real crimping tool for this terminal, but it's close enough. I would bet they were chasing the same problem and they chose to replace the switch, and they kind of crudely soldered a new one in, but I don't think we need quite that many splices, so we're going to get rid of one. Just like factory. So obviously I replaced the other half of the connector in the same way, and now we're good to go. Well, I do feel better that we found an electrical problem. Now it's a proper Watch Wes work video. I guess we should probably test it before we put it back together. Drill, baby, drill. I didn't know what to do, so I called the Hurco service number. I didn't get anybody, but I left a message and they did call me back. Their suggestion was, since the machine's been sitting, maybe the dampers or the bumpers, the buffers, whatever you want to call them, inside the mechanism are just kind of sticky. So they suggested draining out some of the oil, taking a look at it. It looks pretty good in my opinion. And then filling it back up with some Marvel Mystery Oil, and then running the arm through its various maneuvers and just see if it kind of frees it up. And I ran it probably about 40 times back and forth, and it doesn't seem like it's any better. So I think it's an issue with the proc switch. It's switching before the arm is in position. So we're watching for this guy here to go green. Yeah, it's still moving. So it's basically trying to change the tool, or it unclamps the tool before the arm is ready to grab it. And I don't think it should do that. It sounds like the adjustment is just moving the switch in and out, and that changes the timing. Pretty damn close. I like that. Let's see what it'll do. See if I can remember how to do this. We'll just say it's got 3. You want to go to 4. Into. We go to auto. Hey, it works. I can live with that. Cool. Well, it comes out a lot faster than it goes in. So normally there's this reservoir cup here, and the only way to fill it is through this tiny little plug in the top. The problem is there's no vent for this cavity. So if you fill this cup up, the oil just sits there and it will not go down into the gearbox. So what I did the last time is I just took a vacuum pump, stuck it on here, gave it a few pumps, and then that would be enough to suck in the oil in the reservoir. And then I had to keep going back and forth between the vacuum pump and the big syringe. Then I had a big brain moment and figured out I could just take the reservoir off and shoot the oil right in the side. It holds a lot, almost a gallon of oil, about 4 liters. It has taken just short of a calendar year, but this machine is finally ready to do something useful. But not today. The machine is ready, but I am not. I've got to figure out how to run it, how to set the offsets, how to get the RS-232 set up so we can actually load a program. I don't want to rush through that. That's an excellent way to crash a machine, and that would really break my heart after all the work I put into it. So you're going to have to wait. Hi, Max. Yeah, I know you don't like the wind. So now we have to do exactly the same thing to this machine, which I probably won't record because, again, it's going to be exactly the same thing. My plan is to move it outside and build a dam around it with these oil absorbers and then try to pressure wash off as much of the grime as I possibly can. But I can't do that until I pay. My $15,000 water bill. Apparently that's a farm truck. We are in the middle of nowhere, which means we have to provide our own water. And currently that is done with a sand point, which is a pipe driven into the ground with a pump at the top that sucks out water. And because of physics, you can only suck water so far, which means the sand point is pretty shallow, about 25 or 30 feet. It's like 8 or 9 meters. And it's worked fine up to now. We're in a pretty sandy area with a pretty shallow water table. We're close to a river. We're allowed to have a sand point, but if it fails, we can't repair it and we can't replace it. We have to drill a well, which is what's going on here. So our water has run dry, I think 3 times since October. And I got on the list to be the first well drilled. They tried to drill it last week, but there was still too much frost. I couldn't get through it with the old Case backhoe. It's hiding over here. But today it seemed to go a little bit better. These are pools that they use to mix up the mud that they push through the drill. So it sounds like they got most of the hole drilled today. Tomorrow they're going to finish that up and then drop down the pipe, the casing. And once that's in place, we can install the pump. And then we're going to need a bunch of pipes and a bunch of wires, and we're going to have to do a bunch of water testing, and there's various permits, and not something I can do myself. Thanks for watching. A couple of things for the 1 or 2 people who are still here. I got a shout out from a pair of sentient dad joking hands, and it really gave the channel a big boost. So if you came here from the This Old Tony channel, thanks for stopping by. I made sure to capitalize on that publicity by going 3 weeks without making a video. Also, I'm going to be at Open Sauce, it's billed as an adult science fair. It's a place where slightly odd people show off clever but ultimately kind of useless things that they've made. It's put on by YouTube's least chaotic creator. I wasn't actually invited, but turns out if you give them some money, you can invite yourself. So if you're going to be there, maybe I'll see you there. That's it. Thanks for watching.